Art is the reshaping of reality by man to present it in an understandable way. As the artist recreates the world around him, it is shaped by how he sees it and what he believes in. The Indian artist did not attempt to depict only the material reality around him. He wished to share the complete experience of the moment, not just the photographic presentation of the shapes around him. Beauty for the Indian artist has been a reflection of the glory of God. In fact, for the ancient artist, the experience of beauty, the ecstasy on seeing nature or art which is truly beautiful, has been considered as akin to Brahmanand or the final bliss. Join us on this journey into the heart of the Indian tradition of painting. Come with us to the gorge of the Vajrayana river, where Ajanta was created, to the courts of the Mughals and the Deccani Sultans. Journey with us through the deserts of Rajasthan and the icy lands of Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti. In the verdant south and in the gentle hills of the north, experience the compassionate view of life that is enshrined in Indian painting.
Man needs to believe in something. Life has so many questions and so much pain that he needs to look forward to something that is better and beyond. An understanding which makes sense out of the seeming confusion of existence. When he believes in something, there is peace within him. This is communicated in his works of art, which are the deepest expressions of his feelings. The ancient Indian treatise on painting, the Culpa Sutra of the Vishnu Dharmottara Puran, states that paintings which are made with an understanding of the harmony of life have a beneficial influence upon the onlooker. It is this deep understanding and vision of life which ancient Indian art shares with us.
The best art of the world carries this feeling, one of the sharing of harmony, even of love. The great art of Ajanta takes us to such an enchanted place, where the ceaseless turmoil of the world is at last still.
The figures painted by the artist are in the midst of the world, but their look, their attention is within. And when there is peace, within that, beauty and solace can be found. The task of painting envisaged in the ancient treatise of Indian art is to achieve that very aim. Beauty is, after all, a reflection of divinity that soothes the pain of mankind. No less than this was the avowed aim of the painter in ancient times. Art in ancient India was deeply connected to religious belief. The earliest surviving paintings in India are of the Buddhist faith. From the grand murals of Ajanta, we see art which enshrines the gentlest thoughts and the deepest feelings of compassion. Buddhism, which arose in the 6th century BC, was a great stream of compassion from which some of the most sublime art of the world was born. The art of Ajanta, with its graceful bodhisattvas, or the seekers of truth painted upon the walls, represents perhaps man's greatest achievement in the depiction of the life within. The life of the soul of man within his ephemeral body.
Buddha aham
With the development of Vajrayana Buddhism in the great universities of Nalanda and Vikramshila in eastern India, the art of Buddhism entered another exquisite phase. At these great centers of learning, the attributes of the Buddha were carefully analyzed and understood. Many deities were created who embody the qualities of the Buddha. The philosophy of Vajrayana offered its own path to the devotee to develop compassion and thus aspire towards Buddhahood. The worshipper identifies himself with a particular form of the Buddha until he becomes that very form. Paintings serve as visual aids in the process of identification and transformation. The worshipper concentrates on the deity and in the process loses himself, taking on instead all the qualities that the deity enshrines. Paintings were thus extremely important as they were an integral part of religious practice. In the first millennium, Eastern India was the great center of Buddhism in the world. Scholars and pilgrims constantly came here from all the countries of Asia. During the reign of the Palas, from the 8th to the 12th centuries, painted manuscripts were made in vast numbers in Eastern India. In the Vajrayana Buddhism of this period, the path to liberation was believed to be through the understanding and imbibing of the virtues of the Buddha. The Pragya Paramita was the most revered text of the Vajrayana Buddhists. These texts were written on seasoned palm leaves, and spaces were left by the scribe for the paintings. The paintings are depictions of the Buddha, Buddhist deities, and the Jatak tales of the previous lives of the Buddha. The book of the Pragya Paramita was conceived to be the transcendent body of the goddess, Pragya, or wisdom. The sacred text itself thus came to be worshipped and venerated as a goddess. This is a unique occurrence that a book came to be revered as a deity. The artist who painted the sacred deities within the book performed an act of devotion. The name of the patron who commissioned the making of these texts in order to gain merit is mentioned in the manuscripts. The scribe's name is also mentioned. He first inscribed the written word and left spaces which were then painted by the artist. However, the artist, true to the great Indian tradition, remains anonymous. For him it is enough that he fulfills his duty, his function in life, of painting, in a way only he knew how. Personal vanity or gains played no part in this. The artist was, in painting the images of deities, performing an act of the highest devotion. Since the paintings of the deities were believed to embody the very qualities of the deity depicted, great care was taken while painting them. The images in Buddhist art adhered to the strictest norms of iconography. The painter's role was more than just mere depiction. It is through these images that the details of iconography were maintained through the centuries. Not even the monks knew the complete details in the manner that was known to the painters. These paintings bring to us our only knowledge of many Buddhist deities about whom we do not have any written record. The paintings do not directly illustrate the text. They exist independently as sacred symbols with magical potency. Vajrayana Buddhist rules seem to have guided not only the depictions of deities, but also their placement in the text. The paintings are not spread throughout the text, but appear in the beginning, middle, and end. The paintings in the Buddhist illustrated manuscripts of the Pal period are extremely close to the great murals of Ajanta. The tradition seems to have come down directly from the cave walls onto these narrow palm leaves. The same harmonious blending of plastic and linear qualities is seen here as at Ajanta. Lines flow lyrically, defining the form that they contain. The artist's great skill is apparent in the handling of figures which lilt gracefully. Weight and volume are suggested by tonal variations in color modeling. These are not weighty, earthy beings. They have the serene and sublime beauty that only gods possess. As at Ajanta, the gentle essence of Buddhism is enshrined in the Pala paintings. These paintings take us to an enchanted place, far removed from the noise and clamor of the material world. A world of stillness, whose gentleness and beauty lifts our spirits and our thoughts. The lilting grace of these paintings reminds us that there is an end to the sorrow of the world. In the Pala period, the universities of Nalanda and Vikramshila were the great centers of learning. Their famed libraries had vast archives of revered texts, which attracted scholars from all over Asia. With the destruction of these universities by foreign invaders in the 12th century, Buddhist monks and teachers fled to Nepal and other Himalayan areas. By the end of the 13th century, the creation of art and monuments in North and East India was greatly affected. The art of manuscript painting seems to have disappeared at that time. In the meantime, this tradition had taken roots in the Himalayan areas. Here, protected by the tallest mountains of the world, the making of exquisite Buddhist paintings continued through the medieval period. Along with merchants and missionaries, many Buddhist painters also traveled to Myanmar. Here, thousands of great pagodas were being built by King Anirudh in the 11th and 12th centuries in Bagan. exquisite mural paintings which are closely similar to the beautiful Pala manuscript paintings were made on the walls of these pagodas. Jainism flourished in India at the same time as Buddhism. Besides Buddhist paintings, the other great stream of paintings which flowed in India through many centuries was that of the Jains. A severe famine in the 5th century AD threatened to break the chain of oral transmission of Jain teachings. At this time, vast numbers of manuscripts were written to preserve and to continue the beliefs and the canons of the Jain faith. Large numbers of painted manuscripts continued to be made thereafter through the entire medieval period. Jainism is divided into two sects, the Digambar, sky-clad, and Shvetambar, white-clad. The large majority of illustrated texts were made by the Shvetambar sect. Since times immemorial, the Jain community has been known for its prosperity and trading activities. Jain merchants were amongst the most prosperous and wealthy in India. They were the great patrons of art and temple building. They generously sponsored the making of large numbers of painted manuscripts, as it was believed that they would gain merit by commissioning these sacred works. Early Jain manuscripts, unlike the Buddhist ones, generally illustrate the accompanying text. The Culpa Sutra and Kalkacharya were the most popular manuscripts to be illustrated. The Culpa Sutra describes the life of 4 important Tirthankars or Jain saints. The other popularly illustrated text, the Kalakacharya Katha, is the tale of Kalaka. He was a monk who sought the help of foreign rulers to combat the evil monarch of his land. Interestingly, the foreigners are depicted with narrow eyes and braided hair, quite like Mongols. Here we see Queen Trishala, who will give birth to Mahavir, the great Jain saint. The embryo of Mahavir was miraculously transferred into her womb. On that night she had 14 auspicious dreams. These dreams foretold the birth of Mahavir. We also see paintings depicting Harine Gameshi, who transferred the embryo from Devananda to Queen Trishala. Here we see Lord Indra in his heavenly court. It is he who had sent Harine Gameshi on this mission. In the 10th and 11th century manuscripts, we see both the naturalistic Pala style and the linear style of the Jains. Slowly, the linear tradition with its angular abstractions became the norm. By the end of the 13th century, all traces of Pala modelling, volume and weight had disappeared. The introduction of paper in the 14th century as the popular base for paintings led to changes in the style. Earlier, the compositions had been strictly horizontal, owing to the restrictive, narrow shape of the palm leaf. Now, the artist had a larger surface to work on. The palm leaf manuscripts were held between wooden covers and bound with string. The string holes that had been necessary in the palm leaves came to be painted onto the paper. These gradually became decorative motifs. Border decorations were the first pictorial elements in Jain manuscripts. Even after the introduction of human and animal figures in the manuscripts, the borders continued to provide the artist a space in which he was not bound by religious conventions. Here he was free to paint the world around him. Jain manuscripts offer us a detailed and colorful picture of contemporary life. Stylizations and conventions were developed and used extensively in the Jain paintings. Linear draftsmanship defines the forms. Color is applied in flat washes. The stylized human figures with pointed noses and rounded chins resemble those at Ellora. The Jain manuscript paintings are lively and vibrant. With animated gestures and rhythmic movements, the figures possess a life of their own. The protruding eye, extending beyond the line of the face, adds to the energy in these paintings. The simple and abstracted forms of the figures are delineated with brisk and shore lines. There is a marvelous sense of design which is extremely modern in its appeal. The conventions of painting developed in the early period in these manuscripts continued right through the medieval age in Indian art. This style has come to be known as the Western Indian style of painting, perhaps because its beginnings are seen in the 9th century mural paintings of Ellora. In the early medieval period, with the fading of the classical style in Indian painting, the Western Indian style became dominant across all of India. We see the protruding further eye in paintings as diverse as those in the Buddhist monasteries of Ladakh and in the Hindu temples of the Vijayanagar Empire. From the Jain or Western Indian style of painting also emerged the style which came to be known as the Chaur Panchashika. This style was to become the basis of the schools of Rajasthani miniature paintings, which were to come in later centuries. The Jain and Buddhist traditions of painting are the roots from which many branches of Indian art developed. The styles travelled across the country and were taken beyond its borders by merchants, soldiers, and travelers. The early art of the Jain and Buddhist traditions is among the finest art of mankind. These paintings transcend mere pictorial representation and bring to us a vision of the great harmony of the world. From the gentle and tender images of the parlor paintings to the lively and linear abstractions of the Jain manuscript paintings, we see two great streams in art. The great classic style, coming from the murals of Ajanta, and its transformation into the medieval idiom, which is the foundation of the schools of Indian paintings to come. These are some of the most beautiful flowers of Indian art, and their seeds developed into great traditions of painting in India and many countries of Asia.